What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Hypnos channel with me, Luke, Arnav, and Big Bird, aka Ryan. Just check out his hair for a minute. If you're in the video, it's humongous. I'll pin it at one point. But this is gonna be the start of a nice little basketball podcast series with my boys Arnav and Ryan. Super pumped for this. If you guys want to introduce yourself, talk about which team you support. Maybe favorite basketball player too. Yeah, Arnav, you want to start?
Yeah, my name's Arnav. It's a real honor to be on this podcast.
You're welcome.
My favorite team, the Dubs. Four-time NBA champs in the last 7 years. Um, my favorite NBA player. Oh, I don't know. I like Draymond. Yeah.
I'm Ryan, and I'm also a Golden State Warriors fan. My favorite player, I would have to say, is Gary Payton II, and I was extremely saddened by his departure from our team, even though he will be getting paid substantially more. It is still very sad to see.
You know what? Let's talk about that for a minute. Do you think the Trailblazers paid him too much? 3 years, 28 million, or do you think he deserves that?
He deserves it. I mean, he he was as a defender on if you watching the finals or just watching the NBA playoffs when he was on the court, you could easily tell he was the best defender on the court. I mean, the only person I would argue was a better defender than him is Draymond, who's Hall of Fame defensive player.
His size is concerning on the perimeter, though.
I don't think it is. I don't think it is. I think if watching him play, his hands are so quick. He is the young glove. I I don't see his perimeter defense as an issue.
You like it?
Let's talk about
Let's talk about the Trailblazers for a minute. Ryan, they pick up Gary Payton, Shaden Sharp with the 7th overall draft pick, Jeremy Grant. Can they be contenders in the West, or have they not been able to do enough?
Well, first, going back to the other question on whether they paid Gary Payton II too much, I don't believe they paid him too much. I believe that they saw what he did in Golden State, and they thought that 28 million over the course of 3 years was enough. So regarding the Trailblazers, obviously as of recent, they've been on the decline. Obviously, Damian Lillard got injured in January, and CJ is no longer on the team. So I think with Jeremy Grant and their 7th pick, and now acquiring Gary Payton, who obviously learned a lot and had a great experience in Golden State, I do believe that they have a chance this season to be at least contenders for the play-in tournament. And it'll be interesting to see if they pick up another player, maybe a wing or a guard coming up.
I agree. I like what they did. They re-signed Yusuf Nurkic, re-signed Anthony Simons, who you can make the case is a similar 3J role. I don't think the production is the same or the efficiency with CJ McCollum, but I like Anthony Simons. I don't think Jeremy Grant moves the needle that much for them. Arnav, do you think Damian Lillard should stay in Portland, or is it time for him to go? Because we can all agree he deserves a ring. Should he stay or leave Portland?
This is difficult for me because as an NBA fan, right, and like as a Warriors fan, and then looking at someone like Kevin Durant, and then looking at someone like Bradley Beal, right. So you have KD here, who he a city. He wants you can. He's so good. He's won championships, right. But what he's missing is he wants someone. He wants a city, a team that can appreciate him, right. He wants a team that loves him, and the only way that happens is by staying in one place at a time and sticking through it, and having some commitment and loyalty. And KD, he's going everywhere, but he's he's never getting that appreciation, right, which is what's lacking. On the other hand, you have someone like Bradley Beal, right, who's got it in the bag in Washington, but they're irrelevant, right. He's not going to win anything. So that's I don't know. I'm trying to if you're
I,
as an NBA fan, you want to see Bradley Beal on a good team. You want to see him on a team that's winning, right? Because you want to see your stars in a position where they can succeed. So me personally, I but me personally, I think there's too much moving around, too much copping out um, in terms of Kevin Durant. So I like the loyalty that Damian Lillard brings to the Trailblazers, but I can also understand why it's sad not to see him on a team that's competing for a ring.
I've got something to say about this too. Um, I personally do believe that if Damian Lillard wants a chance to be a contender, I think he should get out of Portland. Uh, from how I've seen it in this era of the NBA, both Damian Lillard and James Harden, I feel like they've sort of been known as like now they're just the people who get beat by the Warriors in the playoffs. I mean, the Warriors have now beaten Damian Lillard in 5 or 4 games. Three times. Yeah, 3 times in the playoffs now. Um, I think that now that McCollum is gone, obviously they were some at one point considered like the second best front court in the NBA. Sorry, backcourt in the NBA. And now that CJ's gone, he doesn't really have that complementing other guard who he can rely on. So yes, I do believe, and he also hasn't made it past the Western, or he did get to the Western Conference Finals, but and obviously he got swept by Kevin Durant-less Warriors. So I believe that if he wants the best chance at making it to the finals, he should find a new team.
Yeah. I don't think he will though. I mean, correct me if
yeah,
I'm wrong. I think he's pretty outspoken about his loyalty to Portland.
yeah, yeah. I don't see him finding a new team. I think Anthony Simons gets underlooked. I think he is a good backcourt duo. I think they could do damage. I don't see them winning anything, unfortunately, unless Shaden Sharp becomes like a god as their first round draft pick, which he could, but I don't see it happening. Um, I think you make a really interesting point about Kevin Durant, right? There's the flip side of the coin. He does want to be loved, but you can't keep leaving places. That's a very good point. But I think you look at like Bradley Beal, I think the cases between Damian Lillard and Bradley Beal are like very different. Damian at least made it to a Western Conference final where it was competitive. The point differential, even though they got swept, was like really low. I think you guys can remember from watching that series. It was pretty close. Obviously, it was a sweep, but everything was close. Bradley Beal's never made it out of. He made it out of the first round with John Wall, but he's never made it out of the second round. He's still really young. I just don't really get what you're trying to do if you're Bradley Beal. 5 years, 250 mil plus. Um, but it makes sense. He's like DC basketball, so he'll be loved there forever, but they won't win anything, unfortunately. If we jump into kind of the biggest, most recent news, besides the Kevin Durant speculation, which we'll get into, is the Rudy Gobert trade. Rudy Gobert goes from the Jazz to the Timberwolves for 3 unprotected first-round picks, 1 top 5 protected first-round pick, and Walker Kessler, which was the first-round pick of the Timberwolves, and a bunch of filler salaries. Let's go to Ryan. Ryan, who wins the trade, Jazz or Timberwolves?
I definitely think that the Jazz have won the trade. Me personally, I've never been Rudy Gobert's biggest fan. I understand I, no, sorry. Yeah, he was an all-star 1 year, and he was obviously very dominant in Utah. They called him the Stifle Tower, and we played him in 2017. And he sort of seemed like a better version of DeAndre Jordan, in my opinion. Can't really shoot, bad at free throws. He's pretty much only dominant under the basket. Obviously, a great blocker. But in the recent years on Utah, obviously Utah has been good, but I would attribute that more to Donovan Mitchell and maybe even Joe Ingles. But I think that he's also 30 years old, and uh, he's getting older. And the Timberwolves, traded a bunch of their picks to Utah, which they can use to complement Donovan Mitchell in the future.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Timberwolves get a lot of criticism for this trade. Arnav, what's the motivation if you're the Timberwolves GM? What do you think was going through his mind when he makes this deal?
Well, I mean, I think you do need to give Rudy Gobert is I mean, they shipped out Patrick Beverly, who's an elite defender, but Rudy Gobert will take your defense to the next level, right? He
Agreed.
is the
Yeah.
best shot blocker in the league. Um, and what I think, I mean, if you're the Timberwolves, right, you have all these young guys, right? Anthony Edwards, Cat, and if I don't think I mean, what they like shipping off that many picks is it's an insane amount, right?
It
So
is.
I'm with Ryan here. I do think the Jazz got the better end of this, but I don't know. I think they think Rudy Gobert can take them to that next level, right? Like they were close this year, and I think their thinking is Rudy Gobert, All Star, 3 time. I don't know. He's like a
Yeah.
3 time All Star, right?
Yeah, it's important to note Rudy Gobert will be like a first team all defensive player for the remainder or for the next I say 3 years at least. Like he's been it for the past 2 years. He is an amazing defensive player. Make sure that doesn't get overlooked. He's a double king. However, like the fit is quite worrying with him at center, Cat as power forward. The the word around the league is like it's going to be awesome in the regular season, but come playoff time, Warriors small ball lineup, like for example, like the death lineup will just absolutely ruin them. Ryan, how can you justify giving two bigs 50 mil or close to 50 million plus per year on long-term contracts in today's NBA where it's centered around wings and guards?
Well, that brings up an important distinction in Timberwolves center Cat or Karl Anthony Towns, who is himself a great shooter. I remember when he was drafted in 2015, he was one of the starting centers who could really shoot beyond the perimeter, and he's very versatile. He can move with the ball. He can drive in traffic. He is one of those players who's strong and big and athletic, who can guard every position and who can play against every position. Um, and obviously, the Timberwolves have been trying to build their team around him in the past couple of years with numerous first round picks, and that hasn't worked. So I think now they're trying something new in trading their picks to get this one almost veteran center who's even more dominant under the basket than I would say Cat is. And now they can move Cat to the 4 position, and he can spend more time outside the basket.
I agree. If we wrap it up, I have one question about the Timberwolves, Arnav. Who's the best player? Anthony Edwards, Karl Anthony Towns, or Rudy Gobert?
Karl Anthony Towns. I mean, I maybe in looking down the line, Anthony Edwards can take that role. Rudy Gobert will never be the best player just because of his offensive abilities. So I'd take him out of the equation. Anthony Edwards is still young, but I don't know. Just they play through Cat. They've been using Cat all year long, and I mean I think they go as far. I would. I wouldn't take anything. I think Anthony Edwards' potential is off the charts, right? But
I
just
love
Cat,
Edwards. Yeah.
he's over 7 feet. He has post moves. He has a 3 point game, right? I mean, looking at other centers in the league that can do that, that's Joel Embiid, Nikola Jokic. I mean, that's his ceiling in my opinion, right? And those two guys are just running the league right now, you know. So I think it's obviously it's Cat. But I will say something about this Rudy Gobert trade. It's I mean, going back to where Kevin Durant is right now, where the Nets are. I mean, shipping what was the trade exactly? I don't know, like a lot of picks,
Yeah, it was 4 for future firsts and the first round draft pick the Timberwolves had this year of Walker Kessler. So 5 first rounders.
So you're saying 5 first rounders for Rudy Gobert. What does that mean if you're the Nets? Like you have Kevin Durant, right? Someone
Yeah,
who is tiers above Rudy Gobert. I mean,
yeah.
so the package they're looking for in relation to this is just it's gonna be crazy. I think it set
Yeah.
a precedent for this offseason in terms of
Let's
stars.
yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Kevin Durant. I think Arnav, you bring up an awesome point, but I think that's many people thought this would help the Nets, like this would help them get even more value, but I think it's actually hindered the Nets. Like teams functionally can't give up like 7 first rounders for
Yeah.
Kevin Durant. Like it just can't happen. You look at the teams who Kevin Durant has said he wants to go to. He wants to go to the Suns. He wants to go to the Heat. Those are his top 2 destinations. You look at what the Heat have. They don't really have the draft capital to move that much. Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson aren't going to move the needle. So the most logical place is the Suns, and the Suns don't have said they don't really care about the draft, but you can't give up like 7 first rounders. It's just not like feasibly possible. So that's why there's been a holdup in the Kevin Durant trade, unfortunately. But
Mm-hmm.
I do think the most likely place he'll go to is the Suns, the package they can offer him. Ryan, where do you think Kevin Durant will end up next season? On the first day, on opening day, will he be in a Nets uniform, a Heat uniform, or a Suns uniform?
Well, first I want to start off by saying what a disaster for the Nets. Just they go into it in 2019, getting Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, and then eventually James Harden, and then they just barely missed the finals, and then they had injuries, and then Kyrie Irving's whole controversy not playing half the season, and now it's all falling apart. So regarding your question, where will Kevin Durant be at the beginning of next season? I will say this is one of these questions where I honestly have zero idea. If I were to guess, well, I have a question for you. Who would who would the Suns trade? Who would both the Heats trade? Who would the Heat trade and who would the Suns trade to get KD?
The Suns trade would be the functional aspect is that they need a third team to get rid of DeAndre Ayton. So they need like the rumors like the Spurs would take on DeAndre Ayton to facilitate a trade, but it would basically be Mikal Bridges, Cameron Johnson, salary fillers, a 4 first round draft picks, um, and that would be it. And that package is way more appealing than Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, and and the Heat don't own all their first round draft picks, so they would only be able to like offer 2. So it'd be tough. The Suns would have to deal Aiden, Cameron Johnson, Mikal Bridges, and a bunch of first rounders.
Well, I think the most ideal scenario for the Nets is that they keep Kevin Durant. But if obviously culture around a team is a huge aspect of winning, so if he's not bringing the what he needs in the locker room and he's not feeling up when he plays with the Nets, then it's probably best for him to leave. But I honestly don't know if I would see the Nets agreeing to that trade. Obviously, you can't get rid of Devin Booker because he just signed his
Yeah.
extension. But I think that, and also what you said about Hero and Robinson from the Heat, I don't know if the Nets would agree to any of those for Kevin Durant unless things get really, really bad in the locker room and Kevin Durant pulls a Kawhi Leonard and refuses to play, which I don't think it'll get there. So if I were to choose right now based off of very little information, I would probably say he'll end up staying on the Nets.
Go ahead, Arno.
I don't think the Suns or the Heat are where he's going to end up. Since first of all, the Sun, I think the Heat, right? If the Nets, at least what I've heard and read is they want if you're the Nets, they want a young All Star, like someone who can blossom into just an elite player, right? They want
Mhm.
it's Kevin Durant, right? So they want some guarantee, or at least a player that like has a good chance, right? So if you're the Suns, Mikal Bridges, DeAndre Ayton, they're good players, but they're not all stars, and they won't be
Yeah.
all stars. DeAndre Ayton is he, he's not built for today's game, and Mikal Bridges is good. He's not an all star. So I do think there's some other places where the Nets are looking, and I think they will trade Kevin Durant um, by the end of this. I mean, they'll trade Kyrie Irving as well, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you're the Nets, right, I think two teams that I'd be interested in are, I think a team like the New Orleans Pelicans, right, which has a shit ton of draft capital and a young all star in either Brandon Ingram or Zion. So if you're the Nets, right, you want to trade with someone like them where you can get a lot of draft picks and you can get a potential star, right? Brandon Ingram is already a star in this league,
Yeah.
and I mean 7 feet with Kevin Durant like abilities,
Would you
right? So
trade Brandon Ingram for Kevin Durant? I don't know if I would as a GM.
Brandon Ingram and a ton of picks, yeah, I would. Because think about CJ McCollum, Zion, and Kevin Durant, like that can be lethal. And I here's what like draft picks. Like I understand people are attached to draft picks, but the chance of one of your draft picks becoming Kevin Durant or becoming a superstar in the first place is close to none. Like, I mean, think about a first round draft pick. Think about you go through lottery picks. Very few, first of all, become all stars, and then an even smaller percentage of those players become possibly the greatest scorer of all time in Kevin Durant. Like Kevin Durant, he is he is just off the charts amazing, right? So I don't. If you're the Pelicans and you get that offer, or if the net, I'm sure the Nets. I mean, I think the Nets are talking to a lot of teams, right?
Yeah.
And even if you're Kevin Durant, I'd be excited to go to a team like that. But I think the teams like a team like the Pelicans has what the Nets wants, which is a young player a young all star, right? And then draft capital as well, which they can back up with. Where a lot of other teams don't, which is also like, I mean, also like someone like the Lakers, I've heard like an AD kind of KD swap. I don't know how
Yeah.
that would work. I don't think
It's
that's
tough
gonna happen.
because the lack of draft picks bite the
Yeah.
Lakers.
Yeah, I mean, I
Um,
guess what they're thinking right now for Kyrie is like Russell Westbrook and two future first rounders for Kyrie Irving, which I think is a no brainer if you're the Lakers,
I
just because
mean,
you're not in a position to win a championship right now with ADs unless AD suddenly becomes his previous self.
the thing is, the reports are a Lakers Kyrie deal is supposed to happen eventually. I think it's like dependent on KD moving though, because if you're the Nets, you're not going to trade Kyrie if KD stays around. So once KD gets traded, I can see a Kyrie to the Lakers deal, especially. I mean, but like if you think about it, would you want to trade Kyrie, Seth Curry for Russell Westbrook in 2 first rounders? Or, I mean, would the Lakers trade 2 first rounders? I don't know if they would trade both of them just for Kyrie with concerns. Ryan, do you think the Lakers would do that deal?
Um, well, the trajectory the Lakers have been going in has not been built around the draft. They got LeBron in 2018, and then they in 2019, and then they got Russell Westbrook and Anthony Davis. So all players who have had years of experience in the league. So if they trade 2 first rounders for Kevin Durant, or sorry, Kyrie Irving, um, they just be continuing that trajectory, which hasn't worked for them as of the last 2 years. So if I were the Lakers, I would think, all right, I'm gonna say it. LeBron's on his last legs. It's finally true. He's not the LeBron he used to be. So I think I would abandon that build around trades and build around signings of free agents, and I would restart from the draft again, like they did when they drafted D'Lo and Ingram and Lonzo, which obviously didn't work. But I think the players like Carmelo is way too old, and Russ is getting old. LeBron's old, and AD's probably past his prime. So yes,
Mm,
I would keep the 2 first-round picks.
let me
I,
jump in real quick. We'll go to you now. But if the Nets make that trade, and even if they send out Kyrie for Russell Westbrook, the 10 million that Russell Westbrook has over Kyrie actually turns into like pretty close to like 70 million because of how deep they are into the luxury tax. Like the Warriors get this with the Kelly Oubre deal. Like you pay Kelly Oubre's contract was um I want to say like 18 million, but it cost the Warriors around like 60 because of the luxury tax. So the luxury tax like multiplies how much you have to pay the league like exponentially. So I don't think 2 draft picks would entice the Nets to pay an extra 70 million in luxury tax, which is another thing to note. Arnav, go ahead.
I was gonna say I want to speak from the Nets perspective, but from the Lakers perspective, like you have Kyrie Irving, who is sketchy, right? Like he's kind of, but he can play with LeBron. Like that's a proven fact. Like
Sure.
Kyrie and LeBron James have proven they can play together.
Sure.
And if I'm the Lakers, again, I think in fact because LeBron's on his last legs, right? Why are you need to get him all the help you can right now. Okay? I mean, he's a top 3 player of all time. You get him
Mm.
what you give him what you can. Why would you sacrifice LeBron James for 2 picks in like 2027? It's use if you and then I think the other thing is it's Kyrie Irving and I might be Seth Curry, but it also might be like Joe Harris or someone. I think the Nets are trying to offload Joe Harris. And like Joe Harris, 3-point champ, he's had injuries and stuff, but he also has potential, right? And the Lakers need shooters. So I think getting Kyrie and Joe Harris is a no-brainer for the Lakers. You've already decided your path, all right? You're not using the draft. You have LeBron James. You know what you did when you got LeBron James. When you get LeBron James, you give him everything you can and you win a chip. So you get Kyrie Irving. And I don't think they should be worrying about future picks when you have LeBron James. You don't worry about your future when you have LeBron. You worry about next season. Um, so that's what I would say for that. Also,
I
I do
agree.
think, yeah,
Yeah, I think I agree. If the Nets make that trade, then they would have to trade KD, like we said. Arnav brought up a great point about the New Orleans Pelicans having the capital to do that. Another team I think we should think about is the Toronto Raptors. If you want a star forward who's very similar to Brandon Ingram and KD, you've got Scotty Barnes there, who's an absolute baller. They have all their first round draft picks, OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam. That would be another like dark horse package. The sell to Kevin Durant would be you saw what Kawhi Leonard did when he came here. The whole country loves Kawhi and will forever love him. If you come here and bring another title to Canada, Drake will kiss you and the whole country will love you. And I think that's a big pull for Kevin Durant. He just wants to be appreciated somewhere. Um, that's another thing I was thinking about. But if we move a little bit away from the Nets, who I think we can decide are NBA free agency losers, um, Ryan, do you have an NBA free agency winner in mind potentially? A team that's kind of like really improved, hit the jackpot, has a chance to contend. It can even be the Utah Jazz picking up a bunch of first round draft picks. But do you have an NBA free agency winner?
Um, Not yet. I think I personally believe that whatever team Kevin Durant goes to will be the free agency winner. So as of now, I mean, I'm not too big on older players. I would say maybe the Clippers with John Wall. So they now have John Wall, Paul George, and Kawhi Leonard. So that could be maybe dangerous in the West. Um, so I'd probably start off by saying the the Los Angeles Clippers as of now.
What about you, Arnaud?
I agree. I think it. I don't know. I think it's difficult for me, at least, to decide a winner. I do think some like teams like Washington are extremely lucky to retain a Bradley Beal when they offer him absolutely nothing except money. So I think, I mean,
So much money.
there's small wins like that. And then I guess, I mean, if you're like a Minnesota fan, maybe now you're thinking you're in title contention. I don't think so. I guess if
Yeah.
you're a Jazz fan, if I'm a Jazz fan, I'm happy right now because what I had before with Rudy Gobert was not working. Um, and so now that you have this draft capital, your future looks bright.
What does Donovan Mitchell do? Like, should he ask out? Should he stay with Utah? I mean, does he fit into their plans? Open to anyone.
I don't know where he is on his contract or how his contract's looking right now. I'm not too sure about that.
I think he's still on a max right now.
Max,
Like with a substantial amount of time left.
I don't think he's good enough right now to be able to like superstar. Oh, I want to go here and like I need to get traded here. I don't think he's at that level. So if I'm
You
him,
don't.
I'm staying at Utah and getting better.
Yeah,
I
his
don't think he
max
has.
contract is up in 2026.
Yeah, I don't think he has a right to complain right now. So
He doesn't have a right to complain.
I don't think he's good enough to be at a position where like you're. I don't think. I think he's on a tier below players like Bradley Beal or, I mean, many tiers below Kevin Durant. Where if you're on a max contract, like I'm, I think he should
You're
be.
pretty
I don't
good.
know.
You're pretty good.
He's
Yeah.
pretty good. I don't. Yeah, but just compared to like the regular players you think about who are trying to get out of like a bad team, like those superstars. I don't know. He's still young, so
Yeah. I still think I think Donovan Mitchell's got a chance, but I think it's just too long. Like the first round draft picks don't mean anything to Donovan Mitchell. Obviously, he doesn't like Rudy Gobert. I mean, famously, they've had locker room beef, especially with Rudy Gobert giving him COVID because he touched all the mics. But who knows? Who knows? I feel bad for Donovan Mitchell a little bit. I would say one free agency winner that is a little under the radar are the Philadelphia 76ers. They're able to get James Harden to decline his massive player option, which was $50 million. He resigns for a much lower, I want to say 2 years, like $60 million. They get PJ Tucker, Daniel House, D'Anthony Melton, all quality bench players. Tucker can probably start, but it's a little worrying as an East fan, I would say. But they're able to pick up some quality players. Ryan, do you maybe want to talk about if the Celtics are potential free agency winners? I mean, I don't know.
Well, I got Malcolm Brogdon, who obviously is somewhat known as one of the worst Rookie of the Year winners in recent history. Yes. He was not that good when he played with Milwaukee. So I don't think the Celtics. I don't think the Celtics got worse because of him. Obviously, they're still an amazing team. So I wouldn't necessarily say the addition of Malcolm Brogdon makes the Celtics a winner when other teams are getting multiple picks and John Walls and re-signing Bradley.
Okay, Brogdon's better than John Wall.
I mean, John Wall hasn't played in long ass time.
Yeah. Arnav, what do you think about the Malcolm Brogdon trade?
I mean, everyone's been talking about this, right? You look at the finals; the Celtics don't have a true point guard, right? So, like, the issues everyone's talking about with the Celtics, it was, pacing. When things got out of control, they didn't have a floor general who could control tempo, and Malcolm Brogdon brings that for your team. Like, it fills a much needed hole in the Celtics roster. So I think it's a great signing for the Celtics. I'd be interested to see how like Marcus Smart, like how that two guard kind of thing works out. Should get Marcus Smart, elite defender, but not the point guard that the Celtics need, and Malcolm Brogdon can be that guy. So
I agree. Brogdon, another playmaking guard, averaged 20 points with the Pacers. I mean, I like it a lot. I will say another signing, Danilo Gallinari, little scoring punch off the bench for the Celtics. I don't know. But we'll take a little bit of an intermission here, and then we'll jump into some more trades and some more free agency moves. We'll see in a bit. All right, guys, welcome back after a brief intermission. Let's just get right back into it. Another under the radar trade that kind of happened right when free agency kicked off, right around the draft, was the Mavericks finally picking up a big to pair with Luka Doncic. After the failed Kristaps Porzingis experiment, they were able to get Christian Wood from the Rockets. Ryan, are you a fan? Are you a fan of Christian Wood's game, and do you like this trade for the Mavericks?
Well, Christian Wood, I know he played for Houston. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know much about Christian Wood. I think he's fairly young. He might be 25 or something. He's 6'9". But I definitely think watching the Mavericks play for 5 games straight against the Warriors, I definitely think that they could use a better front court that could complement Luka Doncic, because obviously Kristaps didn't work, so they can try again with Christian Wood maybe, and maybe it'll work. I don't know.
Arnav, what do you think about the trade?
Well, when I heard they were sending Boban away, I mean, Boban is still the greatest player I've ever seen step on a basketball court. Christian Wood, I think. I don't know. When I've seen him play in Houston, he's length, size, he has skill, he has all the tools that you want from, a wing forward type player, and that's exactly what Dallas needs, especially in the playoffs, right, where they're getting destroyed on the boards and in the paint against a small Warriors team whose biggest player is Kevon Looney.
Kevon is huge. Yeah, no, I like.
Just compared to like a traditional NBA center who is tall. I mean, Kevon has length, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I like it.
Strong, that's what he is.
I like it for the Mavericks. Christian Wood averaged 20 points in 2020, 9 rebounds, backed it up with 17 points, 10 rebounds, back-to-back double-double years. However, I don't think he'll be able to compensate for the loss of Jalen Brunson, who goes to the New York Knicks. Everyone kind of knew this was going to happen before free agency started. But Ryan, what do you make of the Knicks signing Jalen Brunson?
Well, again, I remember watching him play against the Warriors for 5 games. He was good. He was dominant. Remind me who they traded for him again?
Well, the Knicks had to trade a bunch of cap space. So they traded like four second round picks in like Kemba Walker, Alec Burks, and to clear cap space to the Pistons in order to sign him. So they signed him outright via free agency, but a lot of people don't know that they lost like 4 first rounders because they had to clear cap space, or second rounders.
Right. Well, do you think Brunson would start on the Knicks?
Yeah, he'll be the starting point guard.
Yeah. So he can be a good complement to who's that Duke player?
Julius Randle.
Yeah.
What?
Julius Randle.
Oh no, sorry. RJ is who I'm thinking of.
Okay, yeah. RJ Barrett.
You can do well with him. Yeah, I don't know too much about Jalen Brunson other than watching him play those couple times, but I think he'll be good in New York.
I agree. Arnav, what do you think?
I think if you're the Knicks, I don't know what you're doing because Jalen. If you're the Knicks, right, you suck. You're just bad. All right, you are disgusting. Okay, and then here you are trading for. You're paying this dude. I don't know how much you're paying him. Too much. Okay,
Too much.
but
4 years, 110 mil.
way too much for a player who is not an all-star, not an all-star, below an all-star, and even in the playoff series, he had some really good games, but he also had some bad games. He's not consistent. He's 6'1". Okay, he doesn't have the. He's kind of chunky. All right, 6'1", kind of chunky. He's not doing anything for your franchise in terms of. He'll get you from really shitty to mediocre, possibly. But if you're the Knicks, that's not what you want to do. You want to if you're already so bad, you need to be planning for your future, and that doesn't mean giving a bunch of money to a guy who's not an all-star and who's not going to turn your franchise around. Um, I think they should have stuck with their draft capital. I'm not exactly maybe I don't know about the whole cap space thing to be honest, but
I mean, they lose their first round draft pick in order to trade Kemba Walker. They pick up future first rounders in the coming drafts. But I mean, Knicks hate that. They didn't get anyone in the draft. So that was pointless. I agree. Brunson doesn't move the needle at all.
yeah,
You're paying him a bunch of money. Randall's bad. The Evan Fournier contract makes no sense either. I just don't get it personally. Yeah. But another team that has had a horrible free agency is the Los Angeles Lakers. They signed several wing players that they hope can move the needle, but really won't. They signed Juan Toscano Anderson, who was on the Warriors. And as much as he's a fan favorite, did Juan do anything for the Warriors?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
No. Then you sign Lonnie Walker to a 1-year, $6 million deal. His plus minus is so bad because he refuses to play defense. He's one of the worst ranked defensive players. Like, it's not in his DNA. Then you get Troy Brown Jr. from the Bulls, who is just a minimum contract player, and Damian Jones. Ryan, do any of these deals move the needle for the Lakers?
Absolutely not. I remember when Damian Jones was on the Warriors, did not work out. Instantly got rid of him after he only played for 1 year because he was injured his first season. So yeah, I definitely think that this doesn't move the needle at all with a very old Lakers team. I just watched this amazing video. It's called "The Lakers Sucking for 22 Minutes Straight." It just brought me joy to watch. I love Juan Toscano Anderson, fan favorite, Oakland, born and raised, but yeah, he didn't play at all in the playoffs, let alone the finals, and yeah, I don't see any of these being too massive for like Lonnie Walker, cool.
Oh.
Brown Jr. is cool. They're good players, but they obviously the Lakers need a lot more. And I think what the Lakers need rather than bringing in players, I think they gotta get rid of some players instead. So I am not. If I was the Lakers, I would not be a fan of what just happened.
I agree. I mean, it doesn't make sense. Did you see the photo of Juan Toscano Anderson with like the trophy and the Michael Jordan pose? Have you guys seen that? Like, you know, the famous Michael Jordan clip?
Yeah.
Where, yeah.
I saw the
Oh,
James
yeah,
Wiseman
yeah.
one. I think
That
James
was
Wiseman.
hilarious. Yeah, James Wiseman. That was bad. Arnav, should the Lakers blow it up, or should they try to trade for Kyrie and run it back?
Yeah, so I think first of all, I think the issue with this trade is, this year they didn't have any young guys, right? They didn't have any athleticism. So what they've done now is they've gotten all this athleticism through Juan, Lonnie Walker, all these guys. But what I think what they really needed was shooters, right? LeBron generates so many open shots. Like, I think I saw a stat somewhere like the Lakers had the most, or were like high on the most wide open threes this season. They just couldn't hit them. Like, they were getting good shots.
Yeah.
And none of these guys are shooters. I mean, maybe some
Can
of them.
anyone on the roster shoot? Anthony Davis shoots below 20%. Russell Westbrook is
I think
horrendous
LeBron's
from three.
their best shooter.
Just like
Yeah.
also like that one. What's that one young white guy?
Austin Reeves.
Austin
Oh, yeah.
Reeves. I mean,
Yeah.
he's like their.
But they don't even play him. They don't even play him either.
Do they
Yeah,
still have
so-
Kentavious Caldwell-Pope?
No, he's on the Nuggets now.
So this might like fill some athleticism gaps. They need shooters. They're not getting that, which is exactly why they need someone like Kyrie, who can shoot the basket. Who's just he's wet. He's wet with it. So another thing is like if you run a LeBron and AD pick and roll, like teams are able to switch on that because they're two same positions. Once you get a Kyrie LeBron, Kyrie AD pick and roll, you can't switch. They're just two different. They're two different positions, and there's very few people. There's maybe like a handful of players that are going to be able to switch on that and guard both positions. They need Kyrie. They need to get that deal done. I think that's their only option for winning a chip. I don't think AD is good enough to carry this team with LeBron. I think he'll be a good third option.
I agree. I agree.
And these signings were completely useless.
Yeah. All right. Let's say they get Kyrie. Do the Lakers win a chip, Ryan? If they get Kyrie?
No, I don't think they win a championship. Do I think that they get substantially better? Yes, because getting Kyrie also means losing Russell Westbrook, who has been, let's face it, disastrous for them. I don't know what it would mean for Anthony Davis, whether he would stay or go. Obviously, he didn't play last season, but I think he's really good. I don't know if he'll come back the same. And like Arnav said, Kyrie and LeBron have played together. LeBron's obviously older. Kyrie has obviously been places. It's been a long time since they've played together. So sum it up. Do I think they win a chip? No. Do I think that they get a lot better? Yes. What's holding them back from winning the championship, obviously, is the Warriors, and obviously the lack of depth that they have. Austin Reeves is good, but other than that, and just these signings they're not, let's be honest, these signings are not sixth men. They might be, I don't know, 9th or 10th men.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wouldn't see him getting past the second round, maybe the Western Conference Finals.
I agree. I don't see them doing too much, honestly. I feel bad for LeBron. It's just tough. Rob Pelinka, not really a great GM. Jeannie Buss is doing the best she can, but I wouldn't say she's a great owner either. If we say the Lakers aren't going to be Western contenders, who do we think can challenge the Warriors out of the West? Is it the Nuggets? They pick up Kentavious Caldwell-Pope for Will Barton. They get Jamal Murray back, Michael Porter Jr. Is it the Nuggets who are going to be the stiffest competition? Is it the Suns, the Mavericks? What do we think, Arnav?
I think it's the Clippers. I think it's easily the Clippers. The Clippers, I mean, you have Kawhi Leonard, you have Paul George, you have Markieff Morris, you have all these, they have depth. They have shooting pieces around these two guys. I think it's easily the Clippers. The Mavericks are good. They're a threat. They're not going to, but they're not, compared to the Clippers, they're not going to do anything. I think the Clippers are dangerous, just with the depth they have. They have defense. They can play defense. They have the offense. They're a well-rounded, fully fleshed out team. And especially if Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are getting to where we expect them to be.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think they're extremely dangerous. And then I do think personally, if the Lakers get Kyrie, that they're going. Actually, I don't know. I think the Lakers if they get Kyrie, are extremely dangerous as well. I mean, we'll have to see what happens with AD and Kyrie if Kyrie plays. But if those three guys are playing and they're not injured, I think they're an automatic Western Conference Finals contenders with the Clippers and the Warriors. So those are my
I like the Nuggets as the Western Conference contenders. I mean, you bring back Jamal Murray, you bring back Michael Porter Jr., you get Contavious Caldwell Pope, you draft. They picked up a first round draft pick. Who they use it on? But they pick up another first rounder. I like the Nuggets a lot. They get Nikola Jokic is just a beast, back-to-back MVPs. But let's look at the Suns for a minute. We talked about a potential Kevin Durant trade. If they get Kevin Durant, Ryan, do the Suns win the championship?
I'm not a huge fan of saying, "Oh, this team is going to win the title," but I think that would make them a lot better. I think the Warriors would have more of a competition, and I definitely think that they would be the ones to go to the Western Conference Finals. And I also don't like saying anyone will get to the finals other than the Warriors. But yes, I think that if the Suns get Kevin Durant, that they will make. I do think that they have the best chance of making the finals if they get Kevin Durant. Yes, in the West.
I agree. Let's go to the East for our final little segment here. Arnav, who's a prediction to come outside of the East for you?
I got to go with Milwaukee. I mean, wow. Giannis, wow. I mean, look at that man. Just pure strength, pure athleticism, skill. He's developing his jump shot. And then you have Chris Middleton, all-star player. You know, the 1-2 punch that they didn't have this year when they were going against. They almost beat the Celtics, right? Take them to Game 7, but Chris Middleton, Giannis, that is a dangerous team. I mean, I think the Celtics get a lot better with Brogdon and their young players developing, so they're obviously a threat and contenders. I just think Giannis, generational player, generational talent. I see him running the East for the foreseeable future. Sixers too. Joel Embiid's gonna be great again. I don't see the pieces around him functioning and taking him to that level.
Give me the Boston Celtics. I mean, a team that goes to the NBA Finals, takes the Warriors to 6 games. They add their most important piece. They needed a playmaking guard. They get Malcolm Brogdon. They move out just spare parts in the 4 players they traded. They get Danilo Gallinari. They draft that. Okay, we drafted a second rounder. We didn't have a first rounder. JD Davison. We don't know how he'll end up. But give me the Boston Celtics to come out of East. Ryan, to wrap it up, who do you have coming out of the East for next year?
I also have the Milwaukee Bucks. Pretty much exactly what Arnav said. Giannis is insanely talented in all aspects. Chris Middleton, great shooter. I still have Drew Holiday, playmaking. Bobby Portis, great dominant player. I can't really see any other team besides maybe Boston beating Milwaukee, given that they are.
No, I will say this about Boston. Okay, Boston barely made it through this year. I see them as, I think this year they got lucky, to be honest. Okay, you play a Heat team with Jimmy Butler carrying everything on that team. A team that's just running on pure grit. Okay, they're not running on anything else. They take you guys to 7. You play the Bucks without a Chris Middleton. You barely get through them, and then we saw how the Celtics performed in the finals.
All right, Tatum was hurt. Okay, he was injured.
Jason was hurt.
Yeah, he had a shoulder injury.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No.
He played through it though. So proceed.
I don't think Jason Tatum. I think here's what I think. If you look at the last 12 NBA championships, 10, 12 years, almost all of them have been won last 10 years. Almost all of them have been won by Curry, LeBron, and Giannis. And when Kawhi won, Kawhi is a great player, but they got lucky with KD and Clay getting hurt. Okay, so that one was kind of a freebie. To win an NBA championship, you need to have one of the three best players in the league, which is Curry, LeBron, and Giannis, or someone. You need a player that can get to that level.
Is LeBron a top 3 player? Where's Kevin Durant?
Or Kevin Durant. Okay, I put those 4 in the same tier.
In those seasons, he was.
You need one of those guys to win an NBA championship. You look through it's all last 15 years. It's always one of the teams that win always have the best superstar. I don't think Jason Tatum can get to that level. I mean, his handling, unless he somehow magically becomes, I guess you can become a much better ball handler, but the difference between him and we saw it in the finals, the difference between him and Steph Curry is huge. And to win an NBA championship, you need to have one of those guys. And Jason Tatum, I don't think he can be that guy.
I will say he's only like 23, so he could get there. He's not even in his prime yet. All right.
That's true.
So you just wait. I will. Another thing is the Warriors did get shafted by Durant and Clay going down, but when they won their first ship, no one talks about how Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love went down. You know, LeBron was on his own in an island, and he took you guys to 6 games, and then Kyrie and Kevin Love come back and they win. So, you know, it comes down to injury luck. You know, it goes both ways. It goes.
We had our own. You know.
I know, but I mean, look, Zaza doesn't hurt Kawhi Leonard. Maybe you guys don't win that first championship with Kevin Durant.
No. They might have won game 1, but
if you want to talk about injury luck, they're up 25 in the third, and
that's one game. We almost swept that playoffs.
Yeah, because Zaza decides to undercut.
No, if
Kawhi.
he didn't do that, then sorry, we would have gone 16-2.
Also, let's remember that Al Horford is getting old, and that he's going to become worse.
He's always this is Al Horford though. You can't. He'll always be like this. It's not like
old since he was drafted.
It's not like he was another Al Horford. He always averages 16 points.
I don't see the Celtics getting past the second round next year.
Oh my God, you're so bad. Your takes are horrible.
I'm
regretting putting this podcast.
Can we talk about Chet Holmgren?
Do you want to talk? Let's talk about Chet. Who thinks he's going to succeed in the NBA?
I think he's too skinny.
Nav has morphed into the 55-year-old NBA analyst. The body frame just doesn't match up.
You see what Kenneth Lofton did to him?
Kenneth Lofton is a bum, and he scored okay.
He got bullied.
Fair enough, but
here's the other thing. He played. I don't know who he played in his first game. He played the Utah Jazz. He played Utah Jazz when he scored 23. I saw somewhere that roster, they had one drafted player. The rest of that roster was all undrafted. So he put.
That's how most rosters are, though. To be fair.
No, I think most summer league rosters have more.
Yeah, but there's only so many draft picks.
Okay, that's true. But I'm saying.
Your point is well taken. Yes.
I don't think he's proved himself. I don't think he's proved himself yet.
It's the summer league. How can you prove yourself? There'll always be doubters.
But I think there's always people that see Chet and they're like, or they see the first summer league game and they're like, that guy's gonna be special. I don't think we can say that just yet.
I do think he'll be special. He's a unicorn. He's 7'1". He's freaking insane.
I think he's a unicorn in the same way that Kristaps Porzingis is a unicorn.
I mean, Kristaps hasn't done horribly,
but he hasn't done well, you know.
Well, actually, I feel bad comparing him to Kristaps just because I feel like Porzingis has just been injured all the time. So.
Yeah, that is the concern though with Chet Holmgren, but I don't know. I like him. Do we think who was the best out of the top 3? Paulo, Chet, or Jabari Smith? Who's gonna have the better NBA career?
I think Chet has the highest ceiling.
That's not the question.
Literally and figuratively.
Who's gonna have literally and figuratively? Who's gonna have the better career? Chet.
I to be honest, I haven't seen enough of Jabari and Paolo.
Paulo. I think, all right. I think our second podcast, we do a summer league podcast. We do a deep dive into the summer league. We investigate all the rookies. What do we
Then we
think?
talk about why Steph Curry is the GOAT.
Yes, please.
Wait, I have a question. Who's your GOAT? Who's your GOAT, Luke?
Greatest of all time?
Yeah.
I mean, it's tough because we never watched MJ, you know? Like, I want to say MJ, but I never saw MJ play. I never saw Kobe play. So, like, LeBron or Curry.
Yeah,
I mean,
Curry.
I mean, I don't know. I'd probably, yeah. I'd go with LeBron. I don't know.
LeBron.
LeBrick.
LeBron.
I mean, who else?
I don't know.
I don't know. We'll have a conversation in our podcast number 2. Thank you guys for being on. It's been a pleasure, even with your puzzling Celtics takes. We need to come out with a podcast name. So if you have any recommendations, put them in the comments, or you two can help me figure out a podcast name. But it's been super fun. Any final messages from you guys?
Celtics not getting past the second round. Warriors going to three-peat. And
you can't three-peat. You've only won one time.
No, I know.
You got to go back to back first. No.
I'm talking about the next 2 years.
The next 2 years. Curry they're all getting old. The payroll is exorbitant.
We have 3 times as much money as the next team in the NBA. Or as the average team.
Joe Lacob is dishing out the cash. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to go and I'm going to watch some Summer League games. Ryan, any final words?
I think Steph is playing better than he ever has. And I think I don't think he's reached his peak yet. I don't think he's reached his prime yet. I think he's only getting better, and I don't think he'll ever retire. First NBA player to play until he's 46.
He's the Tom Brady of the NBA.
Exactly.
All I'm saying is the finals was over weeks ago. It's time to move on. It's time for Summer League. All right, guys. No one cares that the Warriors won. It's all about next year. All right.
Dante.
All right. It's been a pleasure, guys. Thank you for doing this. Be sure to click the subscribe button and get ready for episode number 2. All right. See you, boys.